This is the tutorial for making the phonological flip book. So let's take an inventory of our supplies first. You will need to have any neutral solid color for the background. You need about 10 sheets. We'll be doing front and back. Then you'll need to have several colors cut into 2-inch by 1-inch strips, 15 white, 10 purple or whatever color you want. This will be syllables. 4 in red, green, and yellow, and then 2 in a blue and an orange. These will be arrows for our blending and segmenting section. The purple or whatever color will be your syllable pages, and then the white small ones are going to be counting words page. Then you also need to have a 2-inch by 4-inch color the same as your syllables, 2 of those, 4 2 by 2-inch orange and blue, and then you need to have 7 2 by 2-inch squares for green, red, and yellow for the rest of your pages. Now to show the word portions of what we're doing, we're going to have 2 2-inch by 6-inch rectangles and 16 2-inch by 4-inch rectangles, and these will be your word pieces. I like to have extra cut on hand just in case I need to add an extra one or I need to fix something. So that will be your supply list. Supplies or tools that we're going to use are things such as have a pair of scissors handy for some trimming we'll be doing. Make sure to have a laminator or accessible to a laminator so you have some lamination film. I like to use double-sided tape, but you can use glue. And then a writing utensil. I've done this several times, and sometimes it's fun to have a paint pen because it's a little bit more clean. Also, silver Sharpies are kind of fun to show up on your background. You can also use some chalk markers if you like that look, but of course you have always your fallback of just Sharpie or regular marker, and either one of those will be fine. Okay, we're ready to start our first page. The first page we're going to create is counting words in a sentence. For this page, we just need the 2-inch by 1-inch white squares, your tape, your writing utensil, and your scissors if needed. I like to take my writing utensil and write a little number 1 in the corner so I know this is the first page. And then I will take my page, remembering that this is the top, and just turn it directly left to right without twisting it so that my top is the same. And I like to write a little number 2 in the corner. This way I can keep everything facing the right direction and things won't end up upside down. So I'm going to go back, just flip it to my first page. When we count words in a sentence, we give them sentences with 2 words, 3 words, 4 words, and 5 words. So I'm just going to kind of lay down my 2 words with a space between. Each one of these white squares represents a word, and I'm just going to give myself a little bit of space between each word so that I can put, there's a visible break between them. So there's 4, and I'm going to space out with 5 on the bottom. Now what you'll notice is, yep, we're going to have to start getting a little closer to each other on the bottom to make room for all 5 words. And if the spacing is too close for your comfort, what you can do is just trim up those bottom words a little bit. Now we can see that my squares are not all exactly the same size. It really doesn't make that much of a difference, but if it bothers you a lot, go ahead and just go through and trim up one of your squares. Maybe it just didn't get on the cutter the right way, or just didn't get all the way cut. So space them out how you are comfortable with spacing each one of the words, giving each line, and then take your double-sided tape and tape them down just like that. Now, when you're doing this with your students, you want them to be able to touch across how many they think. So if you say a sentence, Ben likes books, have them try the top one first. Ben likes, oh, there's more. So go to the next one. Ben likes books. That's the one. This is how many words there are. There are 1, 2, 3, and they can go back and count them. If you feel like you'd want to give them a little bit more of separation from choices, you could take your marker and a ruler and draw a line between each one of the options for how many words. Okay, page 1 is done. To mention that because we are laminating it, I'm not worried about it being super stuck down there. I just have a little piece of tape holding it down until we laminate. The lamination will seal it to itself. All right, so let's take the side on the right and just flip it straight over so that we still have our little 2 on the other side. If you lift up, you'll see that the top has the 2 and that get bigger as I go down. So that will help us just make sure line that nothing gets upside down. We're going to do page 2, which is now the syllable counting in a word. So these are going to represent syllables now. You notice they're not squares because these aren't individual sounds. They can be groups of letters. So take your syllable color and you're going to do the same thing you did with the words. The reason why I change colors is because we will be putting a syllable break in between these sections. So we'll have a 2-syllable word, a 3-syllable word, and a 4-syllable word. Usually with phonological awareness, we don't do too much with 5-syllable words, but you can if you'd like to. Now, another option you have is to leave room for a 1-syllable word and start off with a 1-syllable word at the top. So again, you'll tape those down or glue those down, but the difference between the last page and this one is in between your 2 syllables, do your syllable break mark. So just a little dot. Do that between your 3 syllables and down here at the bottom with your 4 syllables. So I would have 1, 2, 3 breaks in between my syllables. Then when a student is using this to help them, you could say a word like butterfly, and they would tap butterfly. There's the 3. Glasses, glasses. Ball, ball. They can go and use that and tap, and the syllable breaks are there to help them break it apart. Okay, go ahead and tape those down and set it aside for the laminator later. Okay, here we go for page 3. I've written my 3 at the top, and we are going to be doing adding and taking off syllables. So you need to have your 2x4 paper that's cut in the same color as your syllables, and basically we're going to do exactly this. You're going to put your syllable break in the middle where the 2 are sitting, but you're only going to tape down one side. So only one side, and I do the left or the right side just for habit's sake. This one will be laminated, and then you're going to cut that out. So when you laminate it, you won't have it right next to something else. You're going to want to leave a space. Here's an example for one that we're going to do later. You're going to have some space underneath of it because it's going to be the flap that's going to be going and helping it to move. So when you cut it out, or when you laminate it, leave a nice big space that you will be able to have attached to your page, and that way it'll move on and off. So adding a syllable, here's the word, add a syllable, take off a syllable, take it off, and that's what's left. Now, if you're adding to the end, but we've glued down the end, it's really easy. All you have to do is when you're teaching it, is turn your book upside down, and then you can still add it and take it off on the other side. So keep one down so we have one on the page, and then save one to laminate and leave a space underneath. When we get to the book completion stage, I'll show how we're going to put those down so it stays. All right, page 3 is ready for the laminator. Okay, I did forget to mention that we will be building 4 on the back of 3, so make sure you hold on to it before it's ready to go to laminator. Okay, so for page 4, we're going to do one of my favorite pages, which is rhyme recognition. So you'll need to take 4 of your 2-inch by 4-inch white squares to show words. And the focus of this page is to let students see how the end of the word or the rhyme, R-I-M-E, is the same with words that we say rhyme, R-H-Y-M-E. And that the front sound really doesn't matter, just the end. So we're going to show an example of when they do rhyme, the ends will match, and when they don't rhyme, when they won't match. Now, because we're only focused on the end, we're going to want to take our ruler and go in about an inch from the edge. And we're going to just draw a line across our whole word page. And you can take your marker or however else you want to do it and just fill in that onset. We don't want them really even worrying about the onset because that doesn't matter. And if we're going to instruct about how to make a rhyme later, we actually let them change out the onset while keeping the rhyme the same. So you're going to do that to every box for this page. I kind of cheat. Once I have one measured, I just go through and use it as a guide for all the others instead of having to measure again. But if you would like to measure it each time, go ahead. Feel free to do that. So I have two done. I'm now going into my third one. I'm marking on my desk, but it doesn't matter because this is a washable marker. It's not a permanent one, and I'll just wipe it off. I do like to try to get it as fully covered as I can. I've also done this same onset with just a different color, maybe like a green, so that it kind of helps them set up that thought process to the beginning of the word we're going to be using later as green. You could also do it in gray, you could do it in a silver. I just thought black this time because we just don't really care about it for this particular activity, so we can kind of ignore the black or ignore the onset. Okay, so we're going to place them on the board with their onsets on the left, and we're going to group them to having our two that are going to match close together and our two that are not going to match close together. Now, the other thing I didn't put on the supply list was some way at the top to show that these two are going to rhyme and these two don't. You could have a thumbs up, thumbs down emoji or drawing. You could do something as simple as cutting out a check mark and doing a check mark for the ones that rhyme, doing a red X for the ones that do not rhyme, if you'd like to do that. I happened to have these really cute build your own face stickers, and so I have a bear who looks a little concerned that these do not rhyme, and I have a bear that looks very happy because these ones do rhyme. I thought it would be kind of fun because I like to use the example fuzzy wuzzy to help with teaching them rhyme, like fuzzy wuzzy was a bear. So that's my little cheesiness coming out. Now, the other part you need is you could do this with markers, you could do this with just a color, or you can do it with stickers. And we want to show that the rhyme is the same. So because I have those face building stickers, I'm going to use my face building stickers. And on the ones that rhyme, in the middle of the rhyme, I'm going to put a dot. And then I am going to put a very happy face, a happy smile on it, because it rhymes. This one is going to rhyme, so it has a happy face. I'm going to go ahead and put the same color sticker down into my box below it. And this one also rhymes, so he's going to have the same happy smile because they are the same. They rhyme. Now, on the box that does not match, I'm going to put my yellow sticker for one of them, and then I'm going to use a different color sticker for the one that doesn't match. Because these are not the same, they are not going to rhyme. So I'm going to put a sad face on the ones that do not rhyme. It is not the same ending. This is now when you do this with students, you're going to want to emphasize the end part. So if I did fuzzy wuzzy, I would start with f, uzzy, w, uzzy. These were both uzzy. They rhyme. But if I come over here, I have fuzzy and dog. F, actually, I might even start with the F word. F, uzzy, d, og. Uzzy, og were not the same. They do not rhyme. All right, get those taped down, and this page will now be ready for the laminator. Okay, it's time for page number 5. Now, if you're wondering about producing rhyme, we're actually going to use that skill on a different page that we use for something else, just because it visually is the same thing. So we're going to move on to the blending page. So we're going to blend with this one. Now, in order to blend, a student's going to get a 3-sound word. So they'll have the beginning sound, the middle sound, and the end sound. So we're going to do our green, our yellow, and our red 2 by 2 inch squares. And then they're going to blend it together into a whole word. So one of our 2 by 4 6 rectangles is going to be our word we're going to blend it into. So I'm going to start with the blending at the top, or the individual sounds at the top, and then the blended word is going to be down in the center on the bottom. Now, with our small 2 by 1 colors in red, yellow, and green, we're going to cut arrows, and the arrows are going to point from the sound box to the whole word so that you can see the sounds are coming together for that one word. So I'm going to go ahead and tape down my 2 by 2 squares in order with some space because we need to make sure they see the segmenting. And then I'm going to take my arrows, and a really quick way to cut an arrow is just snip off the corner at an angle on the top right, turn it over, do it again. And then I'm going to cut up the middle. This is the middle part of my arrow on both sides. So I've cut both the middle parts of my arrow. You can kind of see that right there. Then I'm going to turn it to the side, and from that corner to the center, I'm just going to snip that away. And I get a fairly uniformed arrow. I might be a little off because you can see I didn't quite get on my corner there. If it bothers you, go ahead and just move up to get right on the edge of that corner and just kind of raise your arrow a little bit. So I'll have to raise it on this side as well so that it's a little bit more even. And you have a fairly decent arrow. Um, if you are really concerned, I suppose you could use stickers, or you could use a die cut machine. I'm usually pretty chill about my arrows don't have to be perfect, but now I have an arrow, and I can take my tape or my glue, and I will probably roll this a little bit just because it's a little wide, and stick it down pointing from the green box. You can do the corner to the center and have it go toward that middle white one. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing to my red. Just take my corner off. Ooh, you can tell this is the one I used already. I'm going to go up the center. This one's a little wider than a 2 by 1, so I'm going to have to fix that one side I can see right now. Do from the corner over, so there's that edge to my corner that I cut off. Go up the center on that side now, so I've created that side of the arrow. And I'm going to have to go up on this one too. I'm always a little off when I'm doing my side just because I don't necessarily cut the same angle on both corners, but that's fine. It just means that I'm going to go through and I'm going to fix this one and come over just a smidgy so it's a little bit more even. And honestly, for me, it's okay. Sometimes I think it's a little bit of a personality to have the arrow that's a little ski-wampus or a little funky. It just makes it fun. Doesn't have to be perfect. So then there's my arrow. Make sure I show it on camera. And take my tape, fold it in half because it's a little wide. Now on my arrow, I'm going to go from the corner of my red box. So the bottom of the arrow goes to the corner of my red box, and then it's going to be leaning and pointing to the white. Actually, I think I want to make that a little bit more of an angle. So it kind of goes a little bit more at an angle up into the box. There we go. That's a little better. Okay, so we have our beginning and our end sound. Now we just need to have our middle sound. So I think the yellow one was a little bit wide for me. So I'm going to go ahead and snip the corner. Snip the corner. Try to keep the angle close to the same. It helps. More practice, you tend to get better at it. And still, as you can tell from my red arrow, it's not perfect. But that's okay. We rejoice in our imperfections sometimes because it makes life more interesting. All right, so there's my yellow arrow. Take my tape, fold it in half. Whoop. There it goes. It's all right if the tape is sticking out a little bit as well because the lamination hides it. It goes away. So with the yellow arrow, I'm actually going to go straight down since it's usually right above it. And this is now my blending board. So I'll turn it toward the camera so you can see. Students that will use this one or need this one to help assist their phonological awareness, I would say each sound and tap each square and then slide underneath the whole square when I want them to actually squish the word together. So an example might be k, at, cat. They can kind of see how it comes together. It helps a lot of students surprisingly well. All right, we're ready for the next side. We are ready for page 6, which is the back of page 5. So I put a little 6 in the corner there. Now, if you're concerned about things being upside down, especially for this blending page, you can always check by just holding and flipping up and saying, yep, my red's at the top. So we're going to make a 4-sound blending board. So we're going to use the 6 by 2 inch white word square. We're going to use red, yellow, orange, and green on the 1 by 2s and the same colors in the 2 by 2s. So we have red, yellow, orange, green. Now we're going to keep consistent with the green being the initial sound, with yellow being the middle sound, hopefully vowel sound, and we're going to keep the orange as that next sound and the red as the final sound. The most important part is to try to keep the green and the red as your first and last sound. Now, when it gets to the middle, we know it gets a little tricky because sometimes we have an initial blend and then the vowel sound. And sometimes we have a final blend and then the vowel sounds in front. So it's up to you whether how you want to work that. So one of the reasons why I went with orange is because it is a variation of yellow, and so you can still have that idea of this is a yellow and vowel middle piece. So I'm going to actually do this way because in younger grades we mostly do a lot of initial blends and not a lot of vowels before the end. So we're going to have those taped down like that. We've got our papers again to make our arrows the same way. I'm going to see if I can do the shortcut version. You know, sometimes this gets me into trouble, but we don't want to sit there and have to cut out each individual triangle. So what I'm going to do is just line up my papers. I'm going to trim them up so they're the same size on the edges. That's going to be the biggest part because we have to keep the angle of the point the same. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off my point there, turn it over, cut off my point there, turn it back because I'm a righty. If you're a lefty, go ahead and keep it on the left side. Do my center up, try to hold them tight so they don't shift in your hand. They're going to want to shift. Do my corner. I totally made that way longer on one side. That's okay, right? Imperfections are great. Go up the one side there and cut my corner off. Ta-da! Now at least they're all the same. Oh, we lost a point on the orange. That's interesting. But we've got at least somewhat the same. We might have fun with that orange one saying, yeah, a caterpillar ate it or something. Yeah, we'll fix it. It'll just be a little shorter. And ski wampus, it's okay. Okay, so then you're going to just tape them down like you did before. This time you're going to have maybe, if you want to put them closer, there you go, that works better. You're going to have the green come from an angle. The angle is going to be a little different. The orange coming down. You do want to try to keep your squares even so they're on the same plane. But then you're just going to put your arrows down like you did before, attached to the color you have, to where the arrows point the way you'd like them to point. I can sometimes like to have them slanted on these bigger words. And then just tape them down. And it's ready for the laminator. Right, it is time for page 7. This one is going to be a segmenting practice. I already have my arrows pre-cut. I have the 3 colors for the 2 by 4 squares, and I'm back to the 2 by 2 squares and 2 by 4 square. This time, in order to do the segmenting, we want to have the word at the top. So you can use the same pages we just made if you'd like to just turn your book upside down, but I always like to have the arrows going the right direction. So I'm going to put the word at the top. I'm going to take my green square and it's going to come down at the bottom on the left side. Now my middle sound, which is the yellow, and of course my red sound, which is the final sound. And with my arrows, we're going to have them pointing from the white box to the sound box. So here is my green going from the word box over to the green now because we're taking the word apart. So here is my yellow going to my yellow. And of course, my final sound is last. And I'm tearing the double-sided tape in half so that it doesn't get quite as bulky. It really doesn't matter. It's my OCD was kicking in a little. And so then I'm going to have my red arrow pointing to my red box. So now you have the word cat and have the kids then touch k, at to help them segment. And as you probably guessed it, we're going to be doing a 4-sound segment on the other side. You can see my scrap pile is starting to pile up now. I have 4 of the same color as before of the 2x2 squares, green, yellow, orange, red. I have 4 arrows that I've pre-cut, and I have a 2x6 word square. Now, if you are finding that the arrows are becoming your nemesis and they're just not turning out the way that you would like to, you can take you can take your square and just do the top corners off, and you have a perfectly wonderful pointing arrow that does exactly the same thing. So if you would prefer to do that, feel free to use that variation. All right, so we're doing a segmenting 4-sound word. So we'll take our 2x6 word, go to the top in the center as best you can. Then we'll go ahead and have our colors in order. Now on the blending, I did the orange next after the green. I'm going to do the same thing this time, mostly because we deal a lot with initial blends more than we deal with blends at the end. You can um, still do a final blends with this one. It's just remember to maybe have that quick conversation about how this thou vowel is up here instead of back. Mostly because we're kind of using that yellow as that vowel middle sound, and I'm not exactly even. Oh well. Okay, so let's go ahead and put our arrows. Again, our arrows should be going from the white box to the colored box. So I'm going to start with my red this time. So there's my tape from the white box to the colored box. I think I'll go up a little higher. I want the arrow part to really kind of be seen from the page. So I don't necessarily want that part to overlap. I don't mind so much having it overlap with the white because you are pulling the sound from that. And because it's a little closer here, I'm actually going to shorten the yellow up a little bit, which means I'm going to want to shorten up the orange as well. Because you're pulling the sound from the word, it doesn't matter so much that it's on top of the white. I just don't want them to lose sight of that connection of where it's moving to that color. That's why I'd really rather keep the pointed arrow outside of the white box. Okay, so there you have your segmenting with your bigger words. You might have the sound or the word black. Black, b, o, a, k. Now, something that older teachers might be interested in, since this is the end of our segmenting and blending pages, is older teachers, or if teachers would like to, add in a blue to make a 5-sound word. I would just put the blue after the green if you wanted to do that. All right, this page is ready for the laminator. Okay, we are getting ready for the phoneme isolation work, adding, deleting, identifying, and substituting. So we have a total of, I think it's 4. Yep, we have a total of 4 pages used, even though we're on page 9. These are just 4 complete pages front and back done. So the first one we're going to do now on page 9 is initial sound identification. Now you can use this one for so many different things. You're just going to need your 2x4 white word square and your green initial square 2x2. And you're going to just put them right at the very middle of the page. You can use this for rhyme production. Just have them switch out or change up that first sound, focusing on the last one. You could also have alliteration practice, saying we want to keep this one the same, so let's keep t, 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 and just change this part. There is a variation that would have you then just laminate this white one and have that flap up and down if you wanted to do alliteration that way. But really, this is super versatile. You can use it in lots of different ways, and that's it. They're going to use it as follows. So if I have the word cat, I would stop here, at, and help them isolate that first sound. All right, let's go to the back. Let's do the next page, page 10. This one is going to be our adding on and deleting initial sound. So I wrote the number 10 at the top. We are going to use the same pieces. We are going to take a 2x4-inch white word and go into the middle. And we are going to reserve or save one of our green 2x2s to be laminated with a space. So this is the piece laminated. You're going to want to leave yourself some space because what we're going to do then is when we attach it, it's going to be set up so it can be, let's add a sound, let's remove the first sound. So this page is ready for lamination. Next page, we are going to do the substituting the first sound page. Again, you need a 2x4 word and the blue and the green 2x2 sound box. We are going to do the same thing. These pages are really easy. You're going to put this word box on the right, but this time, instead of keeping the green, which you still will, you're going to take the blue and you're going to align the blue square right up with the beginning of that word. So this is now the initial word with this first sound that they have. If you'd like to do a variation of green, you could. I personally like the blue because it's a bigger difference. Then I don't know why I did that. I'm going to reserve and save this one again because we will do the same thing. We'll laminate it separately, and when we attach it, we'll attach it straight on top of the blue. So we will have the original first sound, bye-bye that one, and adding on a different one so we have a new word with the same ending. This page can also be used for rhyme production. This would be an excellent one to use because then you would have the original word k, at. Let's change k to b, and now we have b, at. They rhyme because this still stayed the same. All right, this page is finished. Let's do the other side. We are now on page 12, and we are doing the identify middle sound for this one. Now, there are a couple ways you can do this. Most of my students really like to do the roller coaster, and I'll show you the roller coaster before I tape anything down. But essentially, what you're going to do is you're going to have it look like an egg. Sometimes my students call this the egg page because you have the middle sound. But personally, I just don't like the way that looks with two little whites on the side. So I like to take one of my 2x4 squares and just cut it in half. So I end up with a 2x2 in white. And then I'll make my egg in the center just like this and tape them down. It does look like an egg. So when the students use it, it becomes cat. They can go k, at, and they focus in on the ah. Now, a lot of my students like the roller coaster method, which is just basically lifting the yellow up, dropping the last and the first sound down. And so then they have a roller coaster to come up and they get to focus on ah, 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 ah. Now you can use your marker, and this has helped as well, to draw a line or a roller coaster road that if you pull your first and last sounds down a little bit, you actually just draw a line that goes up just underneath of the middle sound and then back down. It's up to you which one you would like to do. That way we talk about the cart getting stuck at the top of the roller coaster, and so we just knock and say, help, help, help. This is the ah, ah, ah. And we come rescue, and then we come down at the T. So that is up to you how you want to do it. I'm going to go ahead and make the roller coaster one just because I know that my students rather like to use that way. And it helps them because then they do it with their hands as well, and they can kind of shake their hand toward the top of the air saying, this is that middle sound. So I'll just tape those two down toward the bottom, tape the yellow one up a little higher in the sky, take my marker, and I'm going to go starting kind of toward the end of the first box, Just kind of roller coaster mountain it up to the middle and then back down a little bit past the beginning of the second box. So they can see that they have that roller coaster. They get stuck, then they can come down if they want to. And a lot of students don't come down, they just stop there, which is fine. They still identify the middle. That's a little assist to help them with that one. Okay, this one is ready for the laminator. We are ready for the substitute the middle sound. We won't actually do an add subtract to the middle sound because otherwise you wouldn't have a word. You'll just have a group of letters. So we are going to use the orange, the yellow, and the white 2x4 square. So again, because I don't like the way that looks two little skinny sides, I'm going to go ahead and cut my 2x4 into half. So we have 2x2. This time I'm not going to do the roller coaster method. This time I am going to just have the yellow one sitting in the middle. And actually I want the orange one because I think I did that with the blue. I'm going to put the orange one sitting in the middle this time for the original sound. And then I'm going to save the yellow to do the same thing that we're going to do with the green, laminate it separate so that it can be an on-off as a substitution. Okay, so if you save this one to laminate separately, this page is finished. Just need to put a little 13 in the corner, and we are ready to do the back side. It's time for page 14. Got my 14 in the corner. We're doing identifying the last sound or the final sound. So I need to have a 2x4 word square. It's going to go get taped in the sort of the middle to the left because we're now looking at the last sound. And a 2x2 red square. Oops, I had two of them. And it's going to be taped right up next to the white square and you're done. This is now identifying the final sound. So if I did the word cat, cat, and I kind of tap it, and this makes a huge difference. That's a skill that tends to be hard for students, but this allows you to then stop there and tap it, and they get the identification. Okay, this page is ready for the laminator. Okay, if you can tell, we're kind of getting down toward the end because we don't have too many pages left to do. This is page 15. This is going to be add or delete the final sound. Get your 2x2 red, 2x4 white. Do the same thing we did before. Take your 2x4 white, set it in the middle, tape it down, and save him. He's going to be laminated separately, just like the others, because we'll do the same thing. Okay, don't worry, we'll go over some directions on how to laminate these ones separate just to get them set up for what we need to be done. This is page 15, all ready for the backside. Okay, so we are ready for substituting the final sound. You're going to need your 2x4 again and your red one, which you will hold and set aside. But this time you can use an orange or you can use a different color. If it bothers you that we're going to have an orange on the back end, go ahead and use a different color. A variation of red is kind of fun because it keeps the same. I haven't found a problem with the orange, and so on the back end, we're going to just put the orange color that will be eventually covered up when you're going to substitute that sound. So lining that up, and I just realized as I was making these videos that my screen and your camera is sideways. I understand that because I have no other place to put my camera. So just remember that when it looks like it's up and down to you, it's actually looking like that. So it's on the right side. I may have to tweak some of these videos. All right. So reserve this one to laminate later so it can be part of the substitution. This one is ready for the laminator itself. Last two pages are a little bit more for our advanced phonological learners. This will be page 17 and 18, and it's mostly concerning with adding and subtracting in an initial blend. So we're going to take our word square and we're going to take one of our green squares, and we're going to actually cut off about not 2 inches, about an inch off the front, which will be your initial sound. But then we're going to leave a space for the other part of the blend. Now this to me looks a little funny. So I will go ahead and take my 2 by 2 inch green square and cut it in half. Save that for some other day. And leave a space between that first initial sound and the blend piece you're adding on or taking away. So I'm going to tape down the word piece at the end. I'm going to not tape down the green, and I'm going to tape down the initial part of the word that I have. So now essentially you're going to save this to laminate separate, just like we've been talking about before, so that when you are working with it, you can delete a part of the blend or add something in to make a blend. If you would like to combo this with substituting the blend, you could have a blue sitting in there. So then it would be, let's substitute the blend. But I haven't found too much of a problem just having it blank since it's slightly a different color. Just save this one so you can laminate it with the others that you're going to laminate for the flaps. Okay, this side is finished. So you flip it over and we do the next side, which is 18. This one does the exact same thing, except you are going to do a final blend. So you take your 2 by 4 white piece, you take your red 2 by 2, cut it in half so you have a little bit skinnier one. And on your 2 by 4 white piece, go ahead and cut about an inch off the back and do the same thing. Just leave yourself space on the right side or the end of the word to do substituting the final blend or deleting the piece of a final blend or adding a piece to the final blend. Again, these are a little bit more advanced skills that might come in toward 3rd grade, but sometimes it's nice to have something there ready for it to go. So save this one to be laminated later, and this page is ready for the lamination as well. Do a book check before I stick it in the laminator just to make sure that I have all my pieces correctly and order and the right direction. So I have page 1, checking that corner again, that I have page 1 with the counting words. When I turn it just straight across, I now have page 2 with syllables, counting syllables. I have page 3 is add and delete syllables. Turn it, just flip it straight over, and I should have page 4, which is recognizing rhyme. Then comes page 5 with my 3 sound blending. I'm going to turn it and I should have page 6 with my 4 sound blending. Now I'm going to page 7, checking that my white square is at the top. This is my 3, should be my 3 sound segmenting, but it's not. It's 8. It's a 4 sound, so I'm going to have to turn it over. There is my 3 sound. So good thing I did this check. So here's my 3 sound blending, and I already know that my 4 sound blending is on the back. Now I have page 9. There's page 9. Page 9, it's a good thing I checked this. Page 9 has my identify initial sound. On the back should be just a white square that I know is going to be add and delete initial sound, but that piece is separate. Then you have page 11, which should be my blue square and my white word piece for my substituting. It'll have a separate flap that comes for the substituting. On the back, I got too anxious there. I have my identify the middle sound for page 12. Sorry, that was page 12. So identify the middle sound. And then I have page 14 and page 13. I want to make sure page 13 is first with my substituting the middle sound. This will have that separate piece, so if we see just orange, that's good. 14 will be identify the final sound, so that one's set, ready to go. Then we have page 15, which is add and delete our final sound. So you should just have a white square on the left side. Please make sure it's on the right, the correct side, the left side of the paper. So that one will have a piece added to it. On the back should then have an orange on the left side. This is page 16. This is where we're going to have the substituting the final sound. So that one's ready to go. Now you have 17 and 18, which we left a space for the green flap to come in and out for adding a blend and deleting a blend. And then you have the space on the other side for adding and deleting a final blend. So just be careful on that one that you have your space on. I'll turn it this way so you can see. Your space is on the left side, space is on the right side. This will be the final blend. 17 will be the initial blend. Okay, so our pages are ready to go. Now, when you laminate them, you should be able to. I have a personal laminator that uses these sheets. If you're using a school laminator, just feel free to run them through on the lamination in just whatever order, because you can go back and put them back in order. That's one of the reasons why we put the numbers at the top. With mine, I'm just going to go ahead and stick the whole sheet inside of the pocket, and I'm going to laminate it just like that. I don't need to do any cutting here. Okay, I'm going to get these laminated and then we will talk about how to laminate the extra pieces. Let's make our interactive pieces. You'll need to have one 2x4 square of the same color of your syllables. You'll need to have two red 2x2 squares, and you'll need to have two green by 2 squares or 2x2 squares. So I already have one laminated, so I'm not going to put that one on here. But I do have another red one as well. So I'm not going to do that one too, but you can line them up just like you are here. You need to have one 2x2 yellow, and then you need to have your 1x2 red and your 1x2 green, and separate them um, apart from the bottom. Leave yourself a nice big space underneath to where we're going to cut those clear flaps out when they're done, like this. So you have that nice big space at the end. So again, essentially you need to have one syllable flap, two red squares, two green squares, one yellow square, and then your 1x2 square. I'm going to laminate those and then we're ready for assembly. So now that our pieces are laminated, I'm going to make sure that I give myself plenty of space to glue these flaps down. So when I cut them apart, I'm going to keep this space here, and I'm going to keep it that long. And I'm going to keep this space this long, and I can trim it off when I actually get to the book. Same thing over here. I'm going to go ahead and cut in between just down, but I'm going to keep this long piece of just clear laminate on all of these pieces. It just gives me plenty to work with when I want to assemble it into the book. I can trim off this little piece here. That's a little bit excessive. Okay, so now I have all of my flaps ready to go. I might have cut those the wrong way. That's okay, we'll figure it out. Then I have these ones that I had extra ready to go, and we are ready to assemble. Let's assemble our book, putting our interactives on. So I have my interactive flat pieces. I'm going to set those aside for now. I have all my sheets laminated here that we created earlier. And if some of you are wondering, well, what about that 11th one or that 10th page? What about that one? Well, I reserved that one for a cover. So please decorate your cover however you want and then laminate it however when you feel like getting it laminated. So I'm going to set this one aside. We won't need the cover until we're ready to bind it. So I'm going to look for number 1 in the corner. This says 2, so I need to flip it over. There's number 1 with 2 on the back, so I'll set that one aside. There's nothing to be done with that one. But now we're on page 3, which was our syllable add and delete page. So I will take my flap here that has my long piece of lamination. I'm going to line that up, and then I'm going to check the bottom. This actually overlaps a little bit. So I'll take my scissors and I'm going to trim that up to being right along the edge of the paper. So that extra lamination can be gone. This is now lined up here. So to make the flap, it's actually pretty simple. When I figured out how to do this, I'm like, well, that was easy. So I'm going to just take some double-sided tape. I'm going to put it along the very bottom edge of the clear lamination right here on the flap, just right down there. And then I'm going to attach it so it lines up. And the only place it's actually attached is down here on the bottom. Then to use it, all I have to do is lift it up and back down again. There's my add and delete right there. Remember to do the delete on the last second one, you just turn it over. So you have adding and deleting the second syllable, adding and deleting the first syllable. There we go. That one is finished. So this page is ready to be bound. I'm going to just check the back, make sure the back is the page 4 with our recognizing rhyme. Going to page 5, nothing to be done on page 5 or page 6, so we can set those aside. There's nothing to be done on page 7 or page 8, so we can set that one aside. And now we're to page 9. Here's page 9 and 10. So 9 is completely done. There's nothing to be done there. But page 10 needs to have our adding and substituting or adding and deleting our initial sound. So here I have my green square laminated with its extended piece here. And I'm going to do the same thing I did before, line it up with the edge of the word square, check for any overlaps, which I look like I have a little extra at the bottom. So I'm just going to go ahead and chop that off. And take my tape, put my tape at the very bottom edge, turn it over so I can do my double-sided tape, line it up, and press the bottom. So now you'll do the same thing. It's on, off, on, off. So that page is now finished. Set that one aside, and we have page 11 with our blue square. We're going to take our second green that we have. Have you noticed mine are slightly different greens? It's okay. And do the same thing. Put it right on top. Put your double-sided tape on the bottom. You're going to match it up so it completely covers that blue. Press that bottom, and now you have, there's my initial sound and replacing it with a new sound. Page 11 is finished. Page 12, nothing needs to be done. Page 13 is the substituting the middle sound. So take our yellow one, and we're going to check for overlaps again. This one has quite a bit of overlap, so I'll go ahead and take that one down. And do my tape, so that way the yellow covers up the orange completely or as best as you can. So now I have substituting the middle sound. Page 13 is done. Page 14 is isolating the last sound. It is finished. Page 15 is adding and subtracting the final sound. So we'll just take our red flap, do the same thing. We're going to add our red flap to that one now. So line that up. I'm not too worried about this edge having a little bit of lamination because it really doesn't do anything. And there it is. Now I have my adding and deleting the final sound. That page is done. Page 16 is substituting the final sound. So I'll just take my second laminated red square and do the same thing. Put it at the bottom. That was the beauty of when I figured this out, is that it was just easy and it was the same assembly for everything else. Now I can substitute my final sound. It's easy and it doesn't fall apart. It's great. That one is finished. We are ready for our substituting the middle blend. The initial blend. So this time I'm just going to match it up, make sure it lines up. Go ahead and put my tape on there, line it up. Okay, adding and deleting that initial blend. Turning it over, grabbing my skinny red one, and do the same thing. Putting on my tape, putting it down, and now we have adding and deleting the final blend. Ta-da-ta-da-ta-da. Guess what? Your book is all assembled. It is ready to be bound. My recommendation is, unless you are able to get all of this edge exactly the same, go ahead and trim all the way to the edge of the paper up there and then put your binding holes here and bind it however you'd like to bind it. Now when you use it, I'm going to turn it this way so everybody can see. Now when you use it, you'll be able to turn it, use the page, and you can flip it like this and then just turn it around and it'll be ready to go. So you already have it set up to be bound together the right way. Happy binding!